Replaceable no more. The day my boss broke me, and the year he lost everything. The day I was declared replaceable. The humiliation didn't happen quietly. It happened under fluorescent lights, in a glass-walled conference room in Manhattan, with my coworkers seated like an audience that hadn't paid for tickets, but got a front-row seat anyway. My boss, Richard Hale, stood at the head of the table, suit crisp, smile cold. The projector behind him displayed numbers I had built, contracts I had saved, clients I had revived from the brink of leaving. My work, my blood, my sleepless nights. Then he laughed. "Let's be honest," Richard said, tapping the table. "Josephine is replaceable." The word echoed. Replaceable. Someone coughed. Someone else avoided my eyes. I felt my throat tighten, my ears ring. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, but he didn't give me the dignity of a response. "You should be grateful you lasted this long," he added. "People like you are everywhere."
People like me.
That was the moment something cracked inside my chest. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, irreversible break. I packed my desk that afternoon while security stood nearby, as if I were the criminal. As I stepped into the New York winter, my phone buzzed with messages from clients. What happened? Why weren't you on the call? Richard didn't know it yet, but when he called me replaceable, he had just removed the one piece holding his empire together. And empires don't fall all at once. They crumble, slowly, painfully, and in public. Before I continue, please subscribe to my channel to see more interesting stories. Thank you. Silence is a dangerous thing. For weeks, I did nothing. I let Richard believe the story he told himself, that I was broken, embarrassed, gone. I ignored LinkedIn messages from colleagues pretending to check in. I didn't correct the rumor that I'd been fired for incompetence. Instead, I listened. From my apartment in Brooklyn, I watched emails pour in from clients who couldn't understand why projects were stalling. I watched Richard struggle to answer questions I used to handle effortlessly. I watched deadlines slip. Then the calls started. Not to him.
To me.
A procurement manager from Chicago. A real estate investor in Dallas. A tech firm in San Jose. All confused, all frustrated. "You always fix this," one of them said quietly. "Richard doesn't even understand our contract structure." I never badmouthed him. I never gloated. I simply said, "I'm no longer with the company." Silence is powerful when used correctly. By the end of the month, the company lost its first major contract, one I had personally rescued 2 years earlier. Richard sent a company-wide email blaming market conditions. I smiled for the first time since I was fired. Because markets don't destroy businesses. Arrogance does. And Richard Hale was drowning in his own. The offer that changed everything. The email came at 2:17 a.m. A startup based in Austin, Texas. Small, ambitious, dangerous in the best way. They had watched my work quietly for years. They knew exactly which contracts I had secured at my old firm. "We don't want your resume," the founder said during our call. "We want your mind." They offered me something Richard never had. Respect.
Equity.
Freedom. I moved to Austin within a month. What I didn't tell anyone was that 3 of my former clients followed me, not officially, not immediately, but cautiously. Meetings over coffee. Quiet strategy sessions. What ifs? Meanwhile, Richard was unraveling. A former colleague sent me a screenshot, him yelling during a Zoom meeting, blaming disloyal employees for declining numbers. He looked smaller somehow, desperate. Then the unthinkable happened. One of the company's oldest partners pulled out. The stock dipped.
Blog noticed.
Whispers turned into headlines. Still, Richard didn't call me. Pride is expensive. And he was about to pay in full. When they finally say your name. By the time my name came up in Richard's board meeting, it was too late. I found out because someone forwarded me the minutes. My hands shook as I read them. Was firing Josephine Johnson a mistake? The question sat there in black and white. They were hemorrhaging contracts, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Seattle, regions I had managed personally. The replacement Richard hired quit within 6 weeks. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. New York area code. I let it ring. He left a voicemail. Josephine, it's Richard. Let's talk.
No apology. No accountability.
Just entitlement dressed as urgency. I didn't call back. Instead, I closed a deal that afternoon worth more than my old annual salary. As I signed the documents, I realized something chillingly calm. This wasn't revenge yet. This was consequence. And consequences don't need anger. They only need time. The first crack in his voice. Richard called again. And again. Then he texted. We miss you here. Things aren't the same without you. Let's put the past behind us. I finally agreed to a call on my terms. He sounded different. Tired. Careful. We can discuss your return, he said. A raise. A title. I looked out at the Austin skyline, sun setting in cinematic gold. You humiliated me, I said calmly. Publicly. A pause. I was under pressure, he replied. There it was. Not regret, excuses. I'll think about it, I said and hung up. That night, another former client signed with my new company. Richard didn't know it yet, but the door he wanted me to walk back through was already burning behind him. And the real reckoning hadn't even begun. The meeting he wasn't invited to. 3 months after I left New York, I stood inside a glass tower in San Francisco, watching fog roll past the windows like a slow-moving secret. The meeting wasn't about Richard's company. That was the point. 5 executives sat across from me, former clients, current decision-makers, people who once trusted Richard because they trusted me. You were the continuity, one of them said. When you left, everything unraveled. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply laid out a proposal. Clean, ethical, airtight. No contracts broken.
No bridges burned.
Just options. They signed letters of intent that afternoon. Back in New York, Richard was blindsided. I heard later that he slammed his office door so hard the glass rattled. He demanded to know why no one had warned him. No one could, because the people who used to protect him were gone. And the ones still there? They were scared. The apology that wasn't one. Richard finally said the word sorry, but it landed wrong. We met at a hotel lounge in Boston, neutral ground, expensive enough to remind us both of what he was losing. I shouldn't have said what I said, he admitted, stirring his drink. But you know how corporate pressure is. I watched him closely. His eyes never met mine. You embarrass me, I said. In public. You questioned my worth. He nodded quickly. Too quickly. Let's move forward, he said. We'll announce your return. It'll stabilize things. There it was. Not accountability strategy. I won't be your shield, I replied softly.
His jaw tightened.
You're making this personal. No, I said. You did. I left him sitting there, surrounded by polished wood and failure disguised as luxury. For the first time, I heard fear slip into his voice as he said my name. When the numbers don't lie. Quarterly reports went public in April. Richard's company missed projections. Badly. Analysts tore them apart on financial news segments in New Jersey and California. One commentator said, the leadership vacuum is obvious. Leadership vacuum. That night, my inbox exploded. Recruiters.
Investors.
Journalists. One headline caught my breath. The woman behind the contracts. Where is Josephine Johnson now?
I didn't respond.
Instead, I closed my laptop and stood on my balcony in Austin, the city lights glowing like a promise I'd kept to myself. The best revenge isn't loud. It's undeniable. The board turns on him. Richard called me from the boardroom. I could hear murmurs in the background, tension thick as fog. They're questioning my leadership, he said. They want you back. Publicly. I almost laughed. Almost. Why? I asked. Because you're trusted, he admitted. And I'm not anymore. Silence stretched between us. I was replaceable. I reminded him gently. His breath hitched. Josephine, he said, voice cracking, please. That word, please, was the first real thing he'd given me. But I wasn't done yet. The offer that changed the game. I made him an offer but not the one he expected. I'll consult, I said. Temporarily. No title. No press release. And I choose which accounts I touch. He hesitated. You don't get to hesitate, I said. Not anymore. He agreed. Within weeks, I stabilized what I could, but I documented everything. The mismanagement, the arrogance, the decisions that led them here. I wasn't sabotaging him. I was holding up a mirror. And mirrors are cruel when you've been lying to yourself for years. The board saw it all. So did Richard. And the real reckoning was finally in motion. Walking back into the fire. Returning to the building in Manhattan felt like stepping into a memory I hadn't healed from. The same marble floors. The same security desk. Different energy. People watched me now, not with pity, but with curiosity, respect,
Fear.
Richard trailed behind me as we walked into the conference room where it had all begun. The glass walls were still there. So were the ghosts. I need you to fix this, he whispered. I'm not here to fix you, I replied. I'm here to fix what you broke. As I reviewed files, patterns emerged, contracts mishandled, relationships neglected, decisions made purely out of ego. The company wasn't failing because of the market. It was failing because Richard stopped listening. I took notes. Quietly.
Thoroughly.
That night, I couldn't sleep because I realized something chilling. He didn't just humiliate me. He had built his entire leadership on stepping on people who carried him. And now, the weight was crushing him. The whisper campaign. It started subtly. Board members asking me questions without Richard present. Executives stopping by my temporary office for clarity. HR quietly requesting documentation. I didn't encourage it. I simply told the truth. And the truth spread faster than lies ever could. In Washington, D.C., a government contract was paused pending internal review. In Phoenix, a partner demanded leadership restructuring before renewing. Richard began canceling meetings. He snapped at assistants. He stopped making eye contact with me. One evening, he cornered me by the elevator. You're turning them against me, he accused. No, I said evenly. I'm letting them see. His face collapsed, not in anger, but realization. The man who once stood tall in arrogance was shrinking right in front of me. And I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction.
Sadness.
Because this didn't have to end like this. The night he finally broke. The call came just after midnight. Richard was drunk. I built this company, he slurred. Without me, they're nothing. I stayed silent. You think you're better than me now? He demanded. I closed my eyes. No, I said. I think I was always necessary and you refused to see it. The line went quiet. Then I heard him cry. Not softly. Not politely. He broke apart like a man realizing too late that power isn't loyalty. That night, I understood something clearly. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was reckoning. And reckoning spares no one. The vote. The board meeting was held in Chicago. Neutral territory. Heavy atmosphere. I wasn't supposed to attend, but they asked me to stay. Richard presented first. His voice shook. His slides lacked conviction. Then they asked me to speak. I didn't attack him. I didn't defend myself. I spoke about systems.
Culture.
Accountability. I spoke about leadership that listens instead of dominates. When the vote happened, I didn't watch. But I heard the result. Richard Hale was asked to step down as CEO, effective immediately. He didn't look at me as he gathered his things. But I felt the weight of that moment settle into my bones. Justice isn't loud. It's final. The man who once called me replaceable. Richard stopped me outside the building. The wind cut through Lake Michigan, sharp and unforgiving. I never meant to destroy you, he said quietly. But you did, I replied. And you taught me something. What? He asked. That value doesn't come from titles, I said. It comes from impact. He nodded, defeated. As he walked away, I realized the woman he tried to erase was the one who outlasted him. And the story wasn't over yet. Because now, the company wanted me to lead. The chair that still felt cold. The board offered me the interim CEO position in Chicago. The words felt unreal, like they belonged to someone else's life. I had once packed my desk under supervision, ashamed and shaking. Now, they were offering me the chair that had crushed me. "I'll accept," I said, "on one condition." They leaned in. "This company will never humiliate its people the way I was humiliated." Silence followed. Then nods. When I returned to New York, the office felt different.
Softer.
Quieter. Like a place holding its breath. Employees stopped me in hallways to thank me for listening, for remembering their names, for changing policies Richard once laughed at. But power carries weight. At night, alone in the corner office, I stared at the skyline and wondered, was I healing or just surviving with better lighting? Because leadership doesn't erase scars. It only reveals how deep they go. The ghost who wouldn't leave. Richard didn't disappear. He emailed once, then twice. Then showed up unexpectedly at a networking event in Los Angeles. He looked older, smaller. "They destroyed me," he said quietly, like a confession.
No, irreplaceable.
"You destroyed yourself." He asked for a reference, a recommendation, a lifeline. For the first time, I had power over his future. And for the first time, I felt sick. That night, I couldn't sleep. Because revenge had brought me here, but staying meant becoming something else entirely. I drafted the reference letter anyway. It was honest, professional, neutral, not kindness, justice. When success feels lonely. Under my leadership, the company stabilized. Contracts returned. Denver, Miami, Portland, regions that had gone dark came back online. Profits rose.
Morale shifted.
But applause fades quickly when you're alone in hotel rooms. In Seattle, I sat by a rain-streaked window and finally cried. Not for Richard. For the woman I used to be. The one who believed loyalty would protect her. Success had cost me something. And I wasn't sure yet what it was. The choice no one expected. 6 months later, the board offered me the role permanently. Full authority. Full control. I surprised them. "I'm stepping down," I said.
Gasps.
Confusion. I didn't fight to reclaim my dignity, just to chain myself to the place that took it. I continued. I came to correct the imbalance, not to rule it. I recommended a successor, someone overlooked, brilliant, steady. Someone like the woman I once was. The room went silent. Then applause. Walking away on my own terms. My last day was quiet.
No speeches.
No grand farewell. I left the building in Manhattan as the sun rose. Same doors, different soul. Outside, I breathed deeply. I had been called replaceable. Yet here I was, unbroken, unbitter, and finally free. But the universe wasn't finished balancing the scales. Not yet, because the most significant payment was still waiting. The company that became a case study. A year after I left, my phone buzzed while I was boarding a flight in San Diego. A business journal had published a feature. The Fall and Rebirth of a Corporate Giant, a leadership lesson. My name appeared in the middle of the article, not as a savior, not as a villain, but as the turning point. Universities requested guest lectures. Conferences invited me to speak, not about revenge, but about culture. The company that once humiliated me was now taught in classrooms as an example of what happens when leaders confuse power with worth. That was when I understood. The truest victories don't need applause. They become references. The call I never expected. Richard called one last time. He was living in Cleveland now.
Consulting work.
Smaller clients. Quieter life. "I finally understand," he said. "You weren't replaceable. I was reckless." I closed my eyes. "I hope you teach differently now," I replied. "I do," he said. "Every day." We hung up without bitterness. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing not to carry the weight anymore. Building something that couldn't be taken. I launched my own firm in Austin, small, intentional, human. We didn't chase scale. We built trust. Former employees from my old company applied. So did people who had been labeled difficult, quiet, not leadership material. We thrived. Not because I proved someone wrong, but because I built something no humiliation could dismantle. Returning to the room where it broke me, I was invited to keynote a leadership summit in New York.
The venue?
The same building, same floor, same glass-walled room. As I stood at the podium, I looked out at faces hungry for success and blind to consequence. I was once told I was replaceable. I began. The room stilled. And they were right. I continued. But so is everyone else. What matters is how we treat people before we need them again. Silence. Then applause, slow, standing, sincere. Replaceable was never the word. I sometimes replay that moment. The day I was humiliated. But now it feels distant, smaller. Richard begged me to return like nothing happened. Instead, everything happened. He lost the company he tried to rule. I found the voice I almost lost. Replaceable was never the word. Invisible was. And once you're seen, nothing can erase you again. Thank you for listening to my story. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my videos.
Thank you.